I'm Maya Santos. I'm 28 years old, and exactly 6 weeks ago, my mother-in-law walked into my home, took my 3-month-old daughter right out of my arms, and told me I would never touch her again. She said I was unstable. She said I was dangerous. She said I wasn't fit to be a mother. And my husband, the man who promised to stand by me through everything, he just stood there, silent, watching as his mother destroyed me with words I never thought I'd hear. But what none of them knew, what my mother-in-law couldn't have possibly suspected, was that every single word, every cruel accusation, every calculated lie was being recorded by a security camera I'd installed 2 months earlier, a camera she didn't know existed, a camera that would turn her perfect, respectable image into evidence so damning that no lawyer, no judge, no amount of family pressure could ignore it. This is my story, and I need to tell it because what happened to me could happen to anyone. Before I dive into this nightmare, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is where you are right now, because this story gets absolutely insane, and I want to know that I'm not alone in this. Are you watching this at work? On your commute? Late at night when you can't sleep? Tell me in the comments. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this one. So let me take you back to the beginning, back to when I thought I had everything figured out. I met Daniel Chen 3 years ago at a hospital fundraiser in Boston. I was a pediatric nurse at Massachusetts General, working the night shift, exhausted but passionate about my job. Daniel was a junior partner at his father's investment firm, charming, attentive, with this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. We fell hard and fast. 6 months later, we were engaged. A year after that, we were married. His mother, Victoria Chen, seemed pleasant enough at first. She was elegant, well-spoken, involved in 6 charity boards across Boston. She wore Chanel suits and pearls, hosted dinner parties where senators and CEOs mingled, and she had very specific ideas about how things should be done. But she was polite to me, welcoming even, or so I thought. The cracks started showing during wedding planning. Victoria wanted the ceremony at the Four Seasons. I wanted something smaller, more intimate, maybe at the Botanical Gardens. Victoria won. She always won. She wanted a guest list of 300. I wanted 80. We had 300. She wanted a specific florist, a specific band, a specific menu. Every time I tried to assert what Daniel and I wanted, she'd smile that tight smile and say, "Darling, I just want what's best for you both. Trust me, I know how these things work." Daniel would squeeze my hand and whisper, "It's easier to just let her have this one. Pick your battles." So I did. I let no battles. I let her plan our entire wedding while I showed up like a guest at my own ceremony. The first year of marriage was relatively peaceful. We lived in a brownstone in Back Bay that Daniel's parents had helped us buy. Well, that Victoria had essentially purchased and put in Daniel's name. I continued working at the hospital. Daniel worked long hours at the firm. We saw his parents every Sunday for dinner at their estate in Brookline. Victoria would ask pointed questions about my career, about when I planned to settle down and focus on family, about whether nursing was really the right long-term path for someone married to a Chen. I smiled through it. I told myself she meant well. I told myself that this was just how wealthy families operated. I told myself that Daniel's silence during these conversations didn't mean he agreed with her. He was just keeping the peace. Then I got pregnant. We found out in January of last year. I was nervous to tell Victoria, but Daniel insisted we share the news at Sunday dinner. When we announced it, she stood up from the table, walked over and hugged me, actually hugged me. "Oh, Maya," she said, tears in her eyes, "this is wonderful. Finally, a Chin grandchild. This is exactly what this family needs." For a few weeks, I thought maybe this would change things. Maybe motherhood would be the bridge that finally connected us. Maybe Victoria would see me as family, not as the girl who married her son. I was so naive. The pregnancy was rough. I had severe morning sickness that lasted well into my second trimester. I was exhausted, working 12-hour shifts at the hospital while growing a human being. Daniel tried to be supportive, but he was traveling constantly for work. And Victoria had opinions. She didn't think I should still be working. She didn't think I should be lifting patients or being exposed to hospital germs. She started showing up at our house unannounced with articles about pregnancy risks and prenatal vitamins and parenting philosophies. She'd leave them on the counter with little notes. Just some thoughts. I know you'll make the right choice. When I was 7 months pregnant, I made a decision. I told Daniel I wanted to take an extended maternity leave, maybe even resign from the hospital, not because Victoria wanted me to, but because I was exhausted and I wanted to be present for our daughter's first year. I'd worked so hard so long, and I wanted this time. Daniel was relieved. Victoria was thrilled. "Oh, Maya, that's so wise," she said when we told her. "Babies need their mothers. I'm so glad you're finally seeing what really matters." Our daughter, Isabella Rose Chin, was born on a Tuesday morning in April, 7 pounds, 4 ounces. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Daniel cried when they put her in his arms. I cried watching him hold her. For one beautiful moment, everything felt right. Victoria arrived at the hospital 3 hours later. She breezed into my recovery room with flowers and balloons and that smile that never quite reached her eyes. "Let me hold my granddaughter," she said, not asking, just stating. Daniel handed Isabella to her without hesitation. I watched as Victoria examined our baby like she was inspecting a piece of jewelry. She has the chin nose and Daniel's eyes. Well, at least she got the important features. The implication was clear. Isabella didn't look like me, and that was apparently a good thing. That was the first warning sign. I was too exhausted, too overwhelmed with new motherhood to process it. But looking back now, that moment in the hospital room was when everything started to change. The first 2 months of Isabella's life were a blur of sleepless nights, endless feedings, and a kind of exhaustion I'd never experienced even during my worst hospital shifts. But it was also beautiful. Holding my daughter, watching her tiny fingers curl around mine, seeing her smile for the first time. These moments made everything worth it. Daniel was less present than I'd hoped. He went back to work after 2 weeks of paternity leave, leaving me alone in our brownstone with a newborn. He'd come home late, kiss Isabella on the forehead, and then retreat to his study to work on his laptop. When I tried to talk to him about how hard it was, how isolated I felt, how much I needed help, he'd say, "I know, babe, but this deal is huge. Just a few more weeks and things will calm down." They never calmed down. There was always another deal, another client, another crisis at the firm. But Victoria had all the time in the world. She started coming over every single day. At first, it was just for an hour in the afternoon. She'd bring food, offer to hold Isabella while I showered, give me advice about feeding schedules and sleep training. I was grateful. I was drowning, and here was someone throwing me a lifeline. But the visits got longer. The advice became criticism. The suggestions became demands. "Maya, you really shouldn't be feeding her on demand like that. Babies need structure. You're creating bad habits." "Maya, she's crying because you're making her anxious. You need to calm down. Babies can sense stress." "Maya, are you sure you should be dressing her in that? It's too cold, too warm, too tight, not the right material." Every single thing I did was wrong. And the worst part, I started believing her. I was so tired, so overwhelmed, so desperate to be a good mother that I started second-guessing every instinct I had. When Isabella cried, I'd panic. Was it something I'd done? Was Victoria right? Was I making my daughter anxious? I started keeping a journal, writing down everything: feeding times, diaper changes, sleep schedules, trying to prove to myself and Victoria that I was doing things right. But no matter what I did, it wasn't enough. Then came the incident with the bottle. Isabella was 2 months old. I'd been struggling with breastfeeding because my milk supply was low. My pediatrician recommended supplementing with formula. I was devastated. I'd wanted to exclusively breastfeed, but I knew my daughter needed to eat, so I started giving her bottles of formula in addition to nursing. Victoria arrived that afternoon as I was preparing a bottle. She watched me measure the formula powder, her expression growing darker. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice sharp. "Making a bottle. Dr. Anderson said we should supplement." "Formula?" Victoria cut me off. "Maya, you're giving my granddaughter formula?" "My milk supply isn't enough," I explained, feeling defensive. She needs her mother to try harder," Victoria snapped. "Formula is full of chemicals and artificial ingredients. It's going to damage her immune system, affect her development. I nursed Daniel exclusively for a year. It's what good mothers do." I felt tears burning my eyes. "I am trying. I'm doing everything." "Are you?" Victoria took the bottle from my hands. "Because from what I've seen, you're taking shortcuts, you're giving up, and now my granddaughter's paying the price." I should have stood up to her. I should have told her to leave. But I was so tired, so broken down, so convinced that maybe she was right that I just stood there crying while she poured out my carefully measured formula down the sink. "I'll go to the store and get you some supplements," she said, her voice softening slightly. "We'll fix this together. But Maya, you need to start taking this more seriously. Isabella deserves better." After she left, I sat on the kitchen floor and sobbed. I felt like a failure. My daughter was 2 months old and I was already failing her. At least that's what Victoria had convinced me to believe. That night, I tried to talk to Daniel about his mother. "She poured out our daughter's formula," I told him as we got ready for bed. "She said I was damaging our daughter by using it." "She just wants to help, Maya," Daniel sighed, not even looking up from his phone. "Help? Daniel, she's criticizing everything I do. She's making me feel like I'm a terrible mother." "You're not a terrible mother," he said automatically, still scrolling through his emails. "You're just adjusting. We all are. Mom has experience. Maybe you should listen to her advice." I stared at my husband. "Did you hear what I just said? She threw away our daughter's food." "She was probably right about the formula thing," Daniel said, finally looking at me. "I read somewhere that breastfeeding is better for the baby's immune system. Maybe you should try harder." Try harder. Those words echoed in my head as I lay awake that night, listening to Isabella breathe through the baby monitor. Try harder, as if I wasn't already giving everything I had. The next morning, I made a decision. I needed proof. I needed evidence that I wasn't crazy, that Victoria's behavior was not normal, that the gaslighting I was experiencing was real. I went online and ordered a small security camera. It looked like a regular smoke detector, completely inconspicuous. The description said it had motion activation, night vision, and cloud storage. Perfect. I installed it in our living room, angled so it captured the couch, the front door, and most of the open-concept kitchen. I didn't tell Daniel. Some instinct told me he'd either dismiss my concerns or, worse, tell his mother. I needed this to be my secret. The camera arrived on a Wednesday. I installed it on Thursday while Victoria was at one of her charity luncheons. By Friday, it was recording everything. I didn't know it then, but that tiny camera would save my life. Well, not my life exactly, but my daughter's life, my future, everything that mattered. Because exactly 9 days after I installed that tiny camera, Victoria walked into my home and tried to take my child away from me forever. It was a Tuesday morning. unseasonably cold for May in Boston. Isabella was 12 weeks old, and I'd finally started to feel like maybe I was getting the hang of this motherhood thing. She'd slept for 4 consecutive hours the night before, a personal record, and I'd actually had time to shower and make myself a real breakfast. Victoria arrived at 9:30, letting herself in with the key Daniel had given her without telling me. I was sitting on the couch in the living room feeding Isabella when I heard the front door open. "Maya," Victoria's voice echoed through the entryway, "are you decent?" I glanced up at the security camera I'd installed, watching its tiny red recording light blink. "In the living room," I called out. Victoria appeared, dressed in a cream pantsuit, her hair perfectly styled. She was carrying 2 shopping bags and wearing an expression I'd never seen before, something cold and determined. "I need to talk to you," she said, setting the bags down on the coffee table. She didn't sit, she just stood there, towering over me while I fed my daughter. "Okay," I said slowly, my instincts immediately on alert. Something was wrong, very wrong. "I've been watching you these past 3 months," Victoria began, her voice steady and clinical, "and I've come to a difficult conclusion, one I've discussed extensively with Daniel." My heart started to pound. "What are you talking about?" "You're not capable of caring for Isabella properly," Victoria said, as casually as if she were commenting on the weather. "You're unstable, emotionally fragile, and quite frankly, I don't believe you're fit to be a mother." The words hit me like physical blows. I pulled Isabella closer to my chest, my arms instinctively tightening around her. "That's not true. I'm doing everything—" "You're doing everything wrong," Victoria interrupted, her voice rising slightly. "You're anxious all the time. You barely sleep. You can't even feed her properly without using formula. And last week when I stopped by, you were crying, just sitting there crying while my granddaughter lay in her bassinet." "I was having a hard day," I said, my voice shaking. "Every mother has hard days. That doesn't mean—" "It means you can't handle this," Victoria cut me off, "and I've discussed it with Daniel. We agree that Isabella would be better off living with us for a while, just temporarily, until you get yourself together, get some rest, maybe see a therapist, work through whatever issues you're having." I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning. "You discussed this with Daniel? When?" "Last night after you went to bed," Victoria said smoothly. "He's concerned about you, Maya. He's just too kind to say it directly, but we both see it. You're not well." "Where is Daniel?" I demanded, standing up, still clutching Isabella. "I want to talk to him right now." "He's at work. He knows I'm here. He knows what we're doing." "What you're doing?" My voice was getting louder. Isabella started to fuss, sensing my distress. "You're trying to take my baby away from me." "I'm trying to protect my granddaughter," Victoria said, and her voice had gone from cold to ice, "from a mother who isn't capable of caring for her. Now you can make this easy or you can make this difficult, but either way, Isabella is coming home with me today." "No," the word came out as a growl. "You're not taking her. Get out of my house." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "This isn't your house, Maya. It belongs to my son, and by extension, it belongs to this family. You have no claim here. You have no power here. You're just a girl who married into money and can't handle the responsibility that comes with it." She took a step toward me. I took a step back. I said no, I repeated, my voice breaking. You can't just take her. This is insane. This is illegal. Is it? Victoria smiled, and it was the cruelest expression I'd ever seen on another human being. You stupid girl. You really think you can stand against this family? Against our resources, our connections, our lawyers? Daniel will choose not you. He'll choose blood. He'll choose us. And when he does, you'll have nothing. No daughter, no husband, no home. Nothing. Then you'll have to physically take her from me, I said, my voice surprisingly steady, because I'm not handing her over. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. The tension in the room was suffocating. Isabella started to cry, a thin wail that cut through the silence. And then Victoria lunged for me. It happened so fast. One moment she was standing 3 feet away, the next her hands were on Isabella, trying to pull her from my arms. I screamed, jerking backward, holding my daughter so tightly I was afraid I might hurt her. Victoria grabbed at Isabella's blanket, pulling it off her, reaching for her body. Give her to me, Victoria snarled, no longer pretending to be composed. Give me my granddaughter. No, stop! You're hurting her. We struggled, actually physically fought over my baby in my living room. Victoria was strong, stronger than I'd expected, and she was relentless. She managed to get one hand under Isabella's back, trying to lift her away from me. Stop! Victoria, stop! I was screaming now, tears streaming down my face, my arms burning from holding Isabella so tightly. My daughter was wailing, terrified by the chaos around her. And then I heard the front door open. What the hell is going on in here? Daniel's voice. Thank God. He'd come home. He'd stop this madness. He'd protect us. I turned toward him, still clutching Isabella. Daniel, your mother is trying to take Isabella. She's hysterical, Victoria interrupted smoothly, immediately releasing her grip on the baby and stepping back. Her entire demeanor changed in an instant. The fury vanished, replaced by concerned grandmother. Daniel, thank God you're here. I tried to have a calm conversation with her about getting some help, and she just started screaming at me. She's not well, son. Look at her. I looked at my husband, desperate for him to see the truth, to defend me, to be on my side. That's not what happened. She showed up here and told me she was taking Isabella away. She said you'd agreed to it. She attacked me, Daniel. She tried to rip our daughter out of my arms. Daniel looked between us, his expression unreadable. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Daniel, Victoria said, her voice trembling now with perfectly performed emotion, I'm worried about her. Look at how she's holding Isabella. She's gripping her so tightly she could hurt her. And the things she's been saying, the accusations, I think she might be having a postpartum psychotic episode. I am not psychotic, I shouted. Your mother is gaslighting me. She's been doing it for months. Daniel, you have to believe me. He was quiet for a moment that felt like an eternity. Then he spoke, and his words destroyed me. Maya, maybe you should give Isabella to my mother, just for a minute, just so we can all calm down and talk about this rationally. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. What? You're clearly upset, Daniel said, his voice that infuriating calm he used when he wanted to sound reasonable. My mom didn't mean to upset you. She's just trying to help. But look at yourself. You're shaking. You're crying. You're holding Isabella way too tight. Just let Mom take her for a minute so you can breathe. I'm shaking because your mother just attacked me, I said, my voice breaking. I'm crying because my husband won't defend me, and I'm holding my daughter tightly because your mother literally just tried to steal her from me. "See," said Victoria softly to Daniel, "this paranoia, these wild accusations. I've seen this before in other women. It's a psychiatric emergency. We need to get her help before she hurts herself or the baby." The way she said it, so calm, so clinical, so convinced, I could see Daniel wavering. I could see him starting to believe her instead of me. And that's when pure panic set in. "Daniel, I am begging you," I said, my voice raw. "Please, please don't do this. Don't let her take our baby. I'm not sick. I'm not having a breakdown. Your mother is manipulating all of us. Please, you know me. You know I would never hurt Isabella. You know I'm a good mother." "Are you?" Victoria asked quietly. "Because good mothers refuse help when they're clearly struggling. Good mothers put their children's needs above their own pride. Good mothers recognize when they're in over their heads." Every word was a knife, carefully placed, designed to make me doubt myself, even as I knew that I was right and she was wrong. Daniel ran his hair through his hair, stressed and uncertain. "Maya, I think maybe you should take a break, just for a few days. Go visit your aunt in Vermont, get some rest, clear your head. Mom can stay here with Isabella, and I'll—" "No!" the word exploded out of me. "No, Daniel, I'm not leaving. I'm not abandoning my daughter. And if you make me, if you side with your mother over your wife, over the mother of your child, then our marriage is over. Do you understand me? Over." Victoria's eyes gleamed with something like triumph. She wanted this. She wanted me to make threats, to seem unstable, to prove her point. Daniel looked torn, genuinely conflicted, and I realized with horror that he was actually considering it. He was actually considering choosing his mother's version of reality over mine. "Son," Victoria said gently, placing a hand on Daniel's arm, "I know this is hard, but you have to think about what's best for Isabella. Maya clearly needs professional help. We're not saying she's a bad person. We're saying she's sick, and sick people need treatment, not babies to care for." The way she phrased it made it sound so reasonable, so caring, so right, and I could see Daniel starting to nod along. That's when something inside me snapped, not into hysteria, but into cold clarity. I looked directly at the security camera mounted on the ceiling, the one that had been recording this entire nightmare. Then I looked back at Victoria. "Get out," I said, my voice steady now. "Get out of my house right now." "It's not your house," Victoria started. "Get out!" I screamed, loud enough that Isabella started crying again. "Get out before I call the police and have you arrested for assault and attempted kidnapping." Victoria's mask slipped for just a second. I saw rage flash across her face, pure and undiluted. Then she composed herself and turned to Daniel. "I'm going," she said softly. "But Daniel, I'm begging you, as your mother, please don't leave that baby alone with her, not until she's been evaluated. If something happens to Isabella because we didn't act, we'll never forgive ourselves." She picked up her purse and walked to the door, pausing to look back at us one more time. "Call me if you need anything. I'm here for you both, always." The door closed behind us, and the silence that followed was deafening. Daniel and I stood facing each other across the living room. I was still holding Isabella, who was calming down now, her cries subsiding into hiccups. My arms ached from holding her so tightly for so long. "Maya," Daniel started. "Don't," I cut him off. "Don't say a word. I can't believe you. I can't believe you would take her side over mine. I can't believe you would consider, even for a second, taking our daughter away from me." "I wasn't going to take her away," Daniel protested. "I just thought maybe you needed a break, some rest." A break? I laughed, a bitter, broken sound. Your mother showed up here and tried to physically remove our baby from my arms, and you think I need a break. Daniel, she assaulted me. She attacked me. And you just stood there. Daniel's face went pale. She didn't assault you, Maya. She was trying to help, and you were... I was what? I interrupted, my voice rising. I was defending my child. Your mother came into this house and told me I was unfit to be a mother. She said she'd discussed it with you. She said you both agreed that Isabella should live with them. Was she lying about that, Daniel? Did you have that conversation? The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. Daniel, I said slowly, ice forming around my heart, did you tell your mother you were concerned about me? Did you discuss taking Isabella away from me? He looked away, unable to meet my eyes. I mentioned that you seemed stressed, that you'd been crying a lot. I was worried, Maya. You haven't seemed like yourself since Isabella was born. So you reported on me to your mother, I said flatly. You told her I was struggling, and she used that information to try to take my baby. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? I demanded. Explain it to me, Daniel. Explain how you talked about your wife behind her back to the woman who's been systematically undermining me for 3 months. Explain how you gave her ammunition to use against me. Explain how, when she attacked me in our living room, you told me to give her our daughter. Daniel's face crumpled. I didn't know she would do this. I swear, Maya, I thought she was just offering to help. I didn't think she would show up here and do what she did. But you believed her, I said, and my voice cracked. When it came down to it, when she said I was psychotic and unstable and unfit, you believed her, not me, your wife, the mother of your child, her. I didn't know what to believe, Daniel exploded. You've been different, Maya. You've been crying all the time. You barely sleep. You're anxious constantly. And my mother, she's raised children. She knows what she's talking about. And when she tells me she's concerned, your mother is a manipulative narcissist who can't stand that she doesn't have complete control over your life anymore. I shouted back. She's been gaslighting me since the day we met, and you're too blind to see it because you've been conditioned your entire life to believe she's perfect. Daniel stared at me, shock written across his face. We'd never fought like this before. I'd never said anything negative about Victoria directly, always kept my complaints vague, always played nice. Not anymore. That's not fair, Daniel said weakly. My mother isn't perfect, but she's not what you're saying. I interrupted. She told me that my mother's mental illness means I'm predisposed to psychosis. She said she has documentation proving I'm unfit. She said she'd take Isabella from me using your family's lawyers and connections. She said you'd choose her over me. And you know what, Daniel? She was right. That's not true, Daniel protested. I didn't choose anyone. I was trying to de-escalate the situation by telling me to hand over my baby to the woman who was attacking me. That's not de-escalation, Daniel. That's betrayal. Isabella had fallen asleep against my chest, exhausted from crying. I looked down at her peaceful face and felt a surge of protective fury so strong it nearly knocked me over. I want you to leave, I said quietly. Daniel's eyes widened. What? I want you to go to your parents' house or go to a hotel, I don't care, but I want you out of here tonight. Maya, come on. Now, Daniel, I shouted, startling Isabella awake again. I lowered my voice, rocking her gently. Get out. I need you gone. I need to think, and I need to keep our daughter safe. And right now, I don't trust you to help me do that. Daniel looked like I'd slapped him. You don't trust me? Maya, I'm your husband. I'm Isabella's father. You can't just kick me out of my own house. Watch me, I said coldly. Leave or I call the police and tell them your mother assaulted me and you failed to protect me. I'll file a restraining order. I'll do whatever I have to do to keep Isabella safe. For a moment, I thought he might refuse. I thought he might call my bluff. But something in my expression must have convinced him I was serious because he held up his hands in surrender. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, I'll go. But Maya, please, can we talk about this tomorrow when everyone's calmed down? Please. I didn't answer. I just turned my back on him and walked upstairs to the nursery, closing and locking the door behind me. I sat in the rocking chair, holding Isabella, and listened as Daniel moved around downstairs, packing a bag, making phone calls, probably to his mother, and finally, blessedly, leaving. When I heard the front door close and his car start in the driveway, I finally let myself breathe. I looked at Isabella, who was nursing now, calm and content, completely unaware of the war that had just been waged over her. I'm sorry to you, I whispered to her. I'm so sorry you have to grow up with this family. But I promise you, baby girl, I promise you right now, I will never, ever let anyone take you from me. I will fight for you with everything I have. I meant it. Every word. But I also knew that words weren't enough. Victoria had made it clear that she had resources, documentation, and a plan. She'd been building her case against me for months, probably from the moment Isabella was born, maybe even before that. If I wanted to protect my daughter, I needed more than words. I needed proof. I needed evidence. I took out my phone and opened the security camera app. The footage from today was already uploaded to the cloud, time-stamped and saved. I watched the whole scene play out again, and what I saw made my blood run cold. From this angle, it was clear. Crystal clear. Victoria lunging at me. Victoria grabbing Isabella. Victoria pulling at my baby while I screamed for her to stop. And Daniel standing in the doorway telling me to give her the baby. There was no ambiguity, no room for interpretation. This wasn't a concerned grandmother trying to help a struggling mother. This was assault. This was attempted kidnapping. This was exactly what I said it was. And it was all on camera. I started downloading the footage, saving it to multiple locations, my phone, an external hard drive, a cloud service separate from my main account. I wasn't taking any chances. This video was my insurance policy, my protection, my weapon. Because Victoria had made a fatal mistake. She assumed I had no power, no resources, no way to fight back. She had assumed wrong. I texted my best friend Rachel, a family law attorney I'd gone to nursing school with before she decided medicine wasn't her forte. Need to see you tomorrow. Emergency. Can you come to my house at noon? Her response came within minutes. Of course. Everything okay? No, I typed back, but it will be. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Victoria's face, twisted with rage, reaching for my baby. I heard Daniel's voice, maybe you should give Isabella to my mother. Instead of sleeping, I sat in the nursery with my laptop, Isabella in her bassinet beside me, and I started building my case. First, I went through my phone and pulled up every text message exchange with Victoria from the past 3 months. I screenshotted everything, organized it by date, highlighted the messages where she'd criticized my parenting, questioned my decisions, implied I was incompetent. Individually, each message looked like it could be well-meaning advice, but put together chronologically, they formed a pattern, a systematic campaign to undermine my confidence and document my supposed failures. Just checking in. Noticed Isabella seemed fussy yesterday. Is everything okay with her feeding schedule? Saw a great article about postpartum depression. Thinking of you. Daniel mentioned you had a rough night. Remember, asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. Every message had a barb hidden in concern. Every text was designed to plant seeds of doubt while maintaining plausible deniability. Then I went through my texts with Daniel. Those were harder to read. Seeing how many times I'd reached out for support, for partnership, for connection, and received one-word responses or promises to talk later that never materialized. I'm really struggling today. Can you come home early? Working late, sorry. Isabella wouldn't stop crying for 2 hours and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. She's probably fine. Babies cry. Try not to worry so much. Your mom came by again and said I'm using the wrong bottles. She's just trying to help. It was all there. The dismissiveness, the prioritization of his mother's opinions over mine, the slow erosion of our partnership that I'd been too exhausted to see clearly until now. Next, I logged into our bank accounts. Daniel and I had separate accounts plus a joint account for household expenses. I'd never paid much attention to the finances. He handled all that, said it was easier that way. Now I looked, really looked, and what I found made my stomach turn. The house wasn't in both our names. It was in Daniel's name only. The car I drove wasn't registered to me. Our joint account had his name listed first, with me as a secondary user. Every single asset we supposedly owned together was actually his. If Victoria wanted to paint me as someone with no legal standing, no financial stability, someone who'd married into the Chin family and was dependent on their generosity, she had everything she needed. I'd been so stupid, so trusting. I'd let Daniel handle everything because I was focused on my career, then on my pregnancy, then on Isabella. I'd never thought to protect myself because I never imagined I'd need to. That ended now. At 6 a.m., I started making phone calls. First to my bank, opening a new account in my name only. Then to my dad, who lived in Portland, explaining the situation. He was furious, wanted to drive down immediately, but I convinced him to wait until I'd met with Rachel. Dad, I need to handle this carefully, I told him. Victoria has money and connections. If I make the wrong move, she could really hurt us. She already hurt you, he said, his voice tight with anger. She put her hands on my granddaughter. I know, and I have proof, but I need to be smart about how I use it. Rachel arrived at noon exactly, carrying her briefcase and a bag from our favorite sandwich shop. She took one look at me and pulled me into a hug. Jesus, Maya, you look terrible. When's the last time you slept? Can't remember, I admitted. Coffee? God, yes. We sat at the kitchen table, Isabella in her bouncer seat between us, and I told Rachel everything. Not just about yesterday, but about the past 3 months. The constant criticism, the undermining, the gaslighting, Victoria's arrival yesterday and what she'd said about taking Isabella, the physical struggle, Daniel's betrayal. Rachel listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each detail. When she finished, she was silent for a long moment. Okay, she finally said. First question, do you want to save your marriage? I hadn't let myself think about that question. Not really. But now, facing it directly, I realized I already knew the answer. I don't know, I said honestly. Daniel chose his mother over me yesterday. He believed her instead of me. He told me to hand over our baby. I don't know if I can forgive that. Rachel nodded. That's fair, and that's something you can figure out later. Right now, we need to focus on protecting you and Isabella. Tell me you have documentation. I pulled out my laptop and showed her everything, the text messages, the bank account information, and finally the security camera footage from yesterday. Rachel watched the video 3 times, making notes. When she finished, her expression was grim. "This is assault," she said flatly. "What Victoria did, physically grabbing Isabella while you were holding her, pulling at the baby, refusing to stop when you told her to, that's assault and battery. It could potentially be attempted kidnapping, depending on how a prosecutor wanted to frame it." My heart was pounding. Really? Really? And Daniel witnessing it and doing nothing, that's failure to protect. Not criminal, but it's definitely relevant in a custody dispute. Rachel paused. "Maya, I need to ask, do you think Victoria would try this again?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "She told me she has documentation. She said she'd use the family lawyers to take Isabella from me. She meant it, Rachel. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment thing. She planned this." Rachel tapped her pen against her notebook. "Okay, here's what we're going to do. First, you're filing for a restraining order against Victoria. This video is grounds. She's demonstrated that she's a physical threat to you and Isabella." "What about Daniel?" "That's complicated. He's Isabella's father. He has rights. But given his behavior yesterday, we can argue for supervised visitation only until we sort this out. The fact that he prioritized his mother's false claims over your safety is a problem. He's going to fight this. His whole family will." "Let them," Rachel said firmly. "Maya, you have something they don't have. You have the truth on camera. Victoria made a massive tactical error yesterday. She assumed you had no power, no resources, no way to fight back. She acted like she could just take what she wanted." "And I recorded it all," I whispered. "You recorded it all," Rachel confirmed, "which means instead of this being a he said, she said situation, we have cold, hard evidence. We have Victoria in her own words saying you're unfit. We have her physically attacking you. We have Daniel telling you to surrender your baby to your attacker. It's damning, Maya. It's incredibly damning." For the first time in 24 hours, I felt something like hope. We filed for the restraining order that afternoon. Rachel had a contact at the courthouse who fast-tracked our emergency petition. By 5 p.m., I was standing in front of a judge, Isabella in my arms, presenting the security camera footage that would change everything. Judge Morrison was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She watched the video twice, her expression growing increasingly severe. "Is the respondent, Victoria Chen, aware that she was being recorded?" she asked. "No, Your Honor," Rachel answered. "The camera is part of my client's home security system. Massachusetts is a one-party consent state for video recording in private residences. The recording is completely legal." "And where is Mr. Daniel Chen now?" "He left the marital home at my client's request following this incident," Rachel explained. "He's been in contact but has not returned to the residence." Judge Morrison looked at me. "Miss Santos, do you feel you and your daughter are in immediate danger from Victoria Chen?" I thought about how to answer that. Was I in danger? Victoria hadn't threatened me with physical violence. She'd threatened me with something worse: legal action, character assassination, the systematic destruction of my parental rights. "Your Honor," I said carefully, "Victoria Chen plans to take custody of my daughter using her family's legal and financial resources. She said she has documentation proving I'm unfit. She physically fought me for my baby, and when I asked my husband to protect us, he sided with her. I believe she will do anything to take Isabella from me, and I believe she has the means to do it unless this court intervenes." The judge was quiet for a moment, reviewing the paperwork in front of her. Then she spoke. I'm granting a temporary restraining order. Victoria Chen is prohibited from coming within 100 yards of you or your daughter. She may not contact you directly or through third parties. This order is effective immediately and will remain in place pending a full hearing in 10 days. She paused. I'm also ordering supervised visitation only for Daniel Chen until we can have a proper custody evaluation. My knees nearly gave out. Thank you, Your Honor. Miss Santos, the judge said, her voice gentler now, what happened in that video is unacceptable. No one has the right to put their hands on your child against your will, regardless of their relationship or intentions. You did the right thing by bringing this to the court. We left the courthouse and Rachel drove me home. I was shaking, the adrenaline and fear and relief all catching up to me at once. What happens now? I asked. Now we wait for them to respond, Rachel said, and trust me, they will respond. The Chen family isn't going to take this lying down. You need to be prepared for them to come at you hard. She was right. Daniel called that evening. I let it go to voicemail. He called again and again. On the fourth call, I answered. Maya, what the hell? His voice was furious, more angry than I ever heard. You got a restraining order against my mother and supervised visitation for me? Have you lost your mind? Did you watch the video? I asked calmly. What video? The security camera video from yesterday, the one showing your mother assaulting me and you telling me to give her our daughter. Silence on the other end of the line. You recorded us? He finally said, his voice quiet with something like horror. Yes, Daniel, I have a security camera in our living room. It records everything. And yes, Daniel, I showed it to a judge. That's why your mother can't come near me or Isabella anymore. That's why you only get supervised visits until we sort this out. Maya, you're taking this too far. My mother was trying to help. Your mother attacked me, I interrupted. She physically tried to take our baby out of my arms, and instead of protecting us, you told me to let her. That's on camera, Daniel. There's no ambiguity, no room for interpretation. The judge saw it. She agreed that your mother is a threat. She's not a threat. She's concerned. About what? I demanded. About the fact that I was crying sometimes? About the fact that I was exhausted from taking care of a newborn alone while my husband worked 16-hour days? Daniel, every new mother struggles. That doesn't make me unfit. That doesn't give your mother the right to try to take my child. Our child, Daniel corrected. Isabella is our child, mine too, and you're trying to keep her from me. You can see her anytime you want with a supervisor present. That's not keeping her from you. That's keeping her safe until we figure out whose side you're really on. Daniel made a sound of frustration. I'm on our family side, Maya. I'm trying to do what's best for Isabella. By letting your mother terrorize me? By believing her lies about me being unstable? Daniel, whose texts is your mother showing you? What documentation does she claim to have? Another pause, a long one. She showed me texts between you, he finally admitted, where you were talking about how hard everything was, how you didn't think you could do it, how you were failing. Show me, I said. Forward me every text she showed me. Maya, show me, I repeated. If you really believe I said those things, if you really think your mother is acting in good faith, then show me the evidence she used to convince you. I heard typing. A minute later, my phone buzzed with incoming messages, screenshots from Victoria, supposedly from conversations with me. I looked at them and felt my blood run cold. They were real texts, words I actually written, but they'd been edited, taken out of context, sentences cut off mid-thought to change their meaning entirely. The real text: "Some days are so hard. I cried for an hour today, but then Isabella smiled at me and I remembered why it's all worth it. I'm doing better than I think I am." Victoria's version: "Some days are so hard. I cried for an hour." Every single message had been carefully edited to remove any context, any hope, any indication that I was coping normally with new motherhood. What was left was a narrative of mental instability and despair. "Daniel," I said, my voice shaking with rage, "your mother manipulated these texts. These aren't what I actually said. She cut out everything that showed I was handling things normally and kept only the parts that made me sound depressed." "How do I know you didn't manipulate them?" Daniel asked, but his voice had lost some of his certainty. "Because I can show you my phone. I can show you the full conversations, time-stamped and unedited. Can your mother do that?" Silence. "Daniel, your mother has been building a case against me. She's been documenting everything I do wrong, editing my words, creating a narrative that I'm unfit, and you fell for it because you've been trained your whole life to believe she's always right." "That's not fair," he said weakly. "Isn't it?" I asked. "When's the last time you questioned your mother about anything? When's the last time you chose someone else's opinion over hers?" He couldn't answer. Because the truth was, Daniel had never questioned Victoria, not once in his entire life. "I need time to think," he finally said. This is a lot, Maya." "Take all the time you need," I told him. "But Daniel, you need to understand something. I'm not backing down. I'm not letting your mother gaslight me anymore. I'm not giving up my daughter to keep the peace. If you want to be part of Isabella's life, if you want to save our marriage, you need to choose me or her, because you can't have both." "That's not fair." "Life isn't fair," I cut him off. "Your mother tried to take my baby. You let her, and now there are consequences. Those are the facts. Deal with them." I hung up before he could respond. The next few days were a blur of legal preparation. Rachel filed for emergency temporary custody, citing Daniel's failure to protect Isabella from Victoria's attack. We compiled evidence: the full, unedited text messages, the security footage, testimony from my pediatrician about my attentive care, letters from my colleagues at the hospital attesting to my character. Victoria's lawyers responded with their own filings. They claimed the restraining order was an overreaction. They said I was mentally unstable. They submitted the edited text messages, along with testimony from Victoria's friends, wealthy Boston socialites who claimed they'd witnessed my concerning behavior at various events. It was all lies. Carefully constructed, expensive lies backed by a legal team that cost more per hour than I used to make in a week. But I had something they didn't: the truth on video. The hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday. As the date approached, the pressure intensified. Daniel's father, William Chen, called me. I was surprised enough that I answered. "Maya, I think we need to talk," he said, his voice gruff but not unkind. "I'm not dropping the restraining order," I said immediately. "I'm not asking you to. I want to meet. Just you and me, neutral location, no lawyers." I hesitated. William had always been quieter than Victoria, less involved in the day-to-day family drama, but he was still a Chen, still part of the machine that was trying to take my daughter. "Why?" I asked. "Because I watched the video," he said quietly. "Daniel sent it to me, and Maya, I need you to know what my wife did was wrong, unacceptable, and I told her so." I nearly dropped the phone. "You did?" "I've been married to Victoria for 41 years. I love her, but I'm not blind to her faults. She can be controlling, manipulative. She's always had very specific ideas about how things should be, and she doesn't handle it when reality doesn't match her vision." She tried to take my baby, I said, tears suddenly burning my eyes. I know, and I'm not excusing that. I'm calling because I want you to know that not everyone in this family is against you. Daniel is confused and torn, but he loves you, and he loves Isabella, and I would like to know my granddaughter without all this legal warfare. Your wife said she'd use all your family resources to take Isabella from me, your lawyers, your connections, your money. Your wife says a lot of things when she's angry, but Maya, I control the finances in this family, not Victoria, and I'm not funding a custody battle to take a baby from her mother. That's not who I am. What about Victoria? She's still going to fight. Probably, admitted William, but without my financial backing, her options are limited. Look, I'm not asking you to drop your guard. I'm just asking you to meet me. Let me see Isabella. Let me try to help fix this mess my wife created. I thought about it. Every instinct told me to refuse, to keep all the Chens at arm's length, but something in William's voice sounded genuine, tired, sorry. Okay, I finally said, but my lawyer will be there, and we meet in public. Fair enough. We met at a coffee shop near Boston Common the next day. William arrived alone, looking older and more worn than I'd ever seen him. Rachel sat at a table nearby, giving us space, but close enough to intervene if needed. William looked at Isabella in her carrier, his eyes softening. She's gotten so big, he said quietly. I've missed 3 weeks of her life because of this mess. Your wife created this mess, I reminded him. I know. He looked at me. Maya, I owe you an apology. I should have seen what was happening. I should have intervened earlier. Victoria has always been intense about family, about maintaining control, but I thought marriage and grandchildren would mellow her. Instead, it made her worse. She edited my text messages to make me look unstable. She built a false narrative and convinced Daniel I was having a mental breakdown. She told me my mother's mental illness made me predisposed to psychosis. William, she was systematic about destroying me. He closed his eyes, pain evident on his face. I didn't know about the text until yesterday, when Daniel showed me what Victoria had sent him versus what you'd actually written. Maya, I was horrified. That's why I'm here, because what she did isn't just wrong, it's cruel, and I won't be part of it. Does she know you're here? No, and when she finds out, she'll be furious, but that's my problem, not yours. Pause. I want to help. I want to make this right. What can I do? I looked at this man, this father-in-law I'd never really known, and I made a decision. Tell the truth at the hearing, I said. Testify about Victoria's behavior, her need for control, her pattern of manipulation. Tell them what you just told me about the texts. William nodded slowly. You realize that will end my marriage. Maybe, I acknowledged, but maybe it will be the wake-up call Victoria needs. But either way, your grandson deserves to know his grandmother, and right now, your wife is making that impossible. Isabella is my granddaughter, he corrected gently. Sorry, I've been so focused on protecting her, I forget that not everyone in your family is the enemy. I understand. And Maya, for what it's worth, I think you're a good mother. I've seen you with Isabella. I've seen how much you love her. Victoria's narrative about you being unfit, it's fiction, and I'll make sure the judge knows that. When I got home that evening, there was a flower delivery waiting on my doorstep. White roses. The card read, I'm sorry. I chose wrong. I love you. Please let me fix this. Daniel. I looked at the flowers, at the card, at the words that should have meant something but felt hollow after everything that had happened. Sorry wasn't enough. Love wasn't enough. Not anymore. I needed to know that Daniel understood what he'd done. I needed to know that he wouldn't cave to his mother's pressure again. I needed to know that he'd choose our daughter over his family's expectations. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Judge Morrison presided from her bench, flanked by an American flag and the Massachusetts state flag. I sat at the plaintiff's table with Rachel. Across the aisle, Victoria sat with her legal team, 3 lawyers in expensive suits who probably cost more per hour than my monthly mortgage payment used to be. Daniel sat in the gallery behind Victoria, looking torn and miserable. William sat on my side of the room, a choice that hadn't gone unnoticed by his wife. The look she'd given him when he walked past her could have frozen fire. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Judge Morrison entered, and we all stood. When we sat back down, she looked over her glasses at both tables. "I've reviewed all the filings in this matter. Ms. Santos is seeking to make permanent the temporary restraining order against Victoria Chin, as well as establish a custody arrangement for the minor child, Isabella Chin. Mrs. Chin is contesting the restraining order and seeking shared custody of the child. Is that correct?" Victoria's lead attorney, a silver-haired man named James Thornton, stood. "Yes, Your Honor, but we'd like to clarify that our client is not seeking to take custody from Ms. Santos. She's simply concerned about the child's welfare and believes supervised contact with both parents would be in Isabella's best interest." "Mr. Thornton," the judge said dryly, "I watched the video of your client physically struggling with Ms. Santos over the baby. What exactly was your client's intention if not to take custody?" Thornton faltered slightly. "Your Honor, the video lacks context. Mrs. Chin was attempting to help a struggling new mother who appeared to be in distress. By grabbing the baby out of her arms, while Ms. Santos repeatedly screamed for her to stop?" Judge Morrison's tone could have cut glass. "Let's dispense with the fiction, counselor. I'm interested in facts. Call your first witness." Victoria took the stand. She was perfectly composed, wearing a navy suit and pearls, every inch the respectable Boston matriarch. She placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. Under Thornton's questioning, she painted a picture of a concerned grandmother who'd watched her daughter-in-law spiral into postpartum depression. She talked about my crying, my anxiety, my inability to cope with basic childcare tasks. She made it sound like she'd been trying to save Isabella from a mentally ill mother. It was a masterful performance. If I hadn't lived through it, if I hadn't known the truth, I might have believed her myself. Then it was Rachel's turn to cross-examine. "Mrs. Chin," Rachel began, approaching the stand with a tablet in her hand, "you testify that you were concerned about Ms. Santos's mental health. When did these concerns begin?" "Shortly after Isabella was born. Maya seemed overwhelmed, unable to cope with the normal challenges of motherhood." "And did you encourage her to seek professional help, suggested therapist or postpartum support group?" Victoria hesitated. I offered my own support. I came by daily to help with the baby." "That's not what I asked," Rachel pressed. "Did you ever suggest she see a mental health professional, despite your concerns that she was mentally unwell?" "Interesting." She swiped on her tablet. "Mrs. Chen, are these your text messages to Ms. Santos?" She displayed them on the courtroom screen, the full, unedited messages I'd sent to Victoria, alongside the edited versions Victoria had shown to Daniel. "You told your son that your wife had written, 'I'm exhausted and sometimes I feel like I'm failing,' correct?" "Yes," Victoria answered, her composure cracking slightly. "But that's not the full text, is it? The complete message reads, 'I'm exhausted and sometimes I feel like I'm failing, but then I remember that every mother feels this way sometimes and it's normal to struggle.' You deliberately cut off the second half to make Miss Santos appear mentally unstable. Is that correct?" Victoria's face had gone pale. I was trying to show Daniel the concerning parts." "You were manipulating evidence," Rachel said flatly. "You took normal expressions of new parent exhaustion and edited them to create a false narrative of mental illness, and then you used that false narrative to justify trying to take custody of your granddaughter. Is that accurate?" "I was concerned for Isabella's safety." "Were you?" Rachel pulled up the security footage, playing it on the courtroom screen. The courtroom watched in silence as the video played. Victoria lunging forward, me screaming, Isabella crying, the physical struggle over my baby's body, and Daniel standing in the doorway telling me to give her the baby. When it finished, the silence was deafening. "Mrs. Chen," Rachel said quietly, "you told Ms. Santos that she would never see her daughter again. You told her you had documentation proving she was unfit. You told her you would use your family's legal and financial resources to take custody, and then you physically tried to remove the baby from her arms. That's not concern. That's not help. That's an attack on a vulnerable new mother by someone who wanted control over her granddaughter. Is that the truth?" Victoria's mask cracked completely. She wasn't taking proper care of Isabella. She was using formula instead of breastfeeding. She was crying all the time. She was being a normal new mother, and you couldn't stand that she wasn't doing things exactly your way, so you decided to take matters into your own hands. No further questions. Next, Rachel called William Chen to the stand. Victoria looked like she'd been slapped when her husband walked past her to the witness chair. Under oath, William testified about Victoria's need for control, her pattern of manipulation, her editing of my text messages. He confirmed that I'd been a loving, attentive mother and that Victoria's characterization of me as unfit was false. "My wife has many wonderful qualities," William said, looking directly at Victoria, "but she has never been able to accept not being in control. When Daniel got married, she lost some of that control. When Isabella was born to a mother who didn't automatically defer to Victoria's parenting philosophy, she lost more, and she couldn't handle it." Victoria's attorney tried to object, tried to discredit William's testimony, but the damage was done. A husband testifying against his wife in open court was devastating to her case. Finally, Daniel took the stand. He looked terrible, pale, exhausted, torn apart by the choice he'd been forced to make. But when Rachel asked him directly about what happened that day, he told the truth. "I should have protected my wife," he said, his voice breaking. "My mother was attacking me, and I told Maya to give her our daughter. I believed my mother over my wife. I chose wrong, and I've regretted it every day since." Judge Morrison didn't need long to deliberate. After a brief recess, she returned with her decision. "I've practiced family law for 23 years, she began, "and this is one of the most disturbing cases I've encountered. Not because of violence or abuse in the traditional sense, but because of the systematic psychological manipulation of a vulnerable new mother by someone who should have been supporting her." She looked directly at Victoria. "Mrs. Chen, you didn't act out of concern for your granddaughter's welfare. You acted out of a need to control a situation that you felt was slipping away from you. You edited text messages to create false evidence of mental instability. You used your position and resources to intimidate your daughter-in-law. And when that wasn't enough, you physically attacked her while she held an infant. That is unconscionable." Victoria sat frozen, her perfect composure shattered. "The restraining order is granted permanently. You are prohibited from any contact with Miss Santos or the minor child Isabella Chen until such time as you complete a psychiatric evaluation and parenting classes and demonstrate to this court's satisfaction that you pose no threat to the child's welfare." Victoria's attorney shot to his feet. "Your Honor, that's excessive." "Sit down, Mr. Thornton," the judge snapped. "I'm not finished. As for custody, I'm granting Miss Santos primary physical custody of Isabella Chen. Mr. Daniel Chen will have visitation rights, but those visits must be supervised until he completes family counseling and demonstrates that he can prioritize his daughter's welfare over his mother's demands." She looked at Daniel, her expression softening slightly. "Mr. Chen, you have an opportunity here to be the father and husband you should have been from the beginning. I suggest you take it seriously." "Yes, Your Honor," Daniel said quietly. "I will. This hearing is adjourned." The gavel came down and it was over. Victoria left the courtroom without looking at anyone, her lawyers flanking her like Secret Service agents. William caught up with me in the hallway. "Maya," said William, "thank you for letting me do the right thing." "Thank you for actually doing it," I replied. "I know it cost you." He gave a sad smile. "Victoria and I will work it out, or we won't. But either way, I want to know my granddaughter. When you're ready, I'd like to visit, properly, as a grandfather, not as whatever mess we've been." "I'd like that," I said, and I meant it. The next few weeks were a strange adjustment. Daniel moved back into the house, but we slept in separate rooms. We were cordial, co-parents before we were spouses. He went to therapy twice a week, both individually and family counseling with me. In one session, about a month after the hearing, Daniel finally broke down. "I was trained from birth to never question my mother," he said, tears streaming down his face. "Whenever I disagreed with her, whenever I pushed back, she'd make me feel like I was betraying the family. And over time, I just stopped questioning. It was easier to believe she was always right than to deal with the guilt of opposing her." "But I'm your wife," I said. "Isabella is your daughter. When did we stop being your family?" "You never stopped," Daniel insisted. "I just didn't know how to be loyal to both. And when my mother made me choose, I defaulted to what I'd always done. I chose her. And Maya, I will regret that for the rest of my life." "Do you understand what she did? Not just that day, but for months before. She gaslit me. She made me doubt myself. She tried to take my baby." "I know," Daniel said, "and I let her. I enabled her. I was complicit in everything she did to you because I was too weak to stand up to her." The therapist, Dr. Lisa Park, leaned forward. "Daniel, the question isn't whether you made mistakes. You did. The question is whether you're capable of change, whether you can establish boundaries with your mother and prioritize your nuclear family over your family of origin." "I am," Daniel said firmly. "I've already told my mother she's not welcome in our lives until she gets help. I've told my father that any family events need to exclude Victoria until she completes the court-ordered programs. And Maya, I'm telling you, I choose you. I choose Isabella. I choose our family. I should have done it from the beginning, and I'm sorry it took losing you to figure that out." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him. But trust, once broken, doesn't repair quickly. "I need time," I told him. "I need to see consistent action, not just words. I need to know that the next time your mother creates a crisis, you won't cave." "I won't. I promise you, Maya, I won't." 3 months after the hearing, I allowed Daniel to move back into our bedroom. 6 months later, Victoria completed her court-ordered programs and wrote me a letter. I didn't want to read it, but Rachel advised me that it might be relevant if Victoria tried to challenge the restraining order, so I opened it. The letter was 5 pages long, handwritten on Victoria's expensive stationery. In it, she didn't make excuses or justify her behavior. She simply acknowledged what she'd done. "I was wrong," she wrote. "I tried to control a situation that wasn't mine to control. I tried to take a child from her mother because I convinced myself I knew better. I let my ego and my need for control override my judgment and my decency. I hurt you. I hurt Daniel. I hurt my husband. And most importantly, I put my granddaughter in danger. I can't undo what I did, but I want you to know that I'm working to become someone who deserves to know Isabella. I'm in therapy. I'm learning about boundaries and control issues and the damage that narcissistic behavior causes. I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't even think I deserve it. But I hope that someday you might allow me to prove that I can be better." I showed the letter to Dr. Park in our next session. "It reads as genuine," she said. "But Maya, only you can decide if and when you're ready to let Victoria back into your life. There's no timeline for forgiveness. There's no obligation to reconcile." I looked at Daniel. "What do you think?"
he said carefully. "I think that my mother has a long way to go, but I also think people can change if they're willing to do the work. And based on what my father tells me, she is doing the work. But babe, this is your decision. Isabella is your daughter. If you never want my mother around her, I'll support that." The fact that he said that he put my feelings and Isabella's safety above his mother's desires, meant more than he probably knew. A year after the hearing, I agreed to supervised visits with Victoria. They took place at William's office, with him present. Victoria was different, humbler. She asked permission before holding Isabella. She didn't offer unsolicited advice. She apologized again, looking me in the eye, accepting responsibility without caveats. It wasn't perfect. There was still tension, still hurt, still a wariness on my part that might never fully disappear. But it was a beginning. 2 years after that terrible day when Victoria tried to take my baby, I had a second daughter. Emma Grace Chin came into the world surrounded by family, her father, her grandfather, and yes, eventually, her grandmother. But the difference was that now everyone knew the boundaries. Everyone understood that I was her mother, that Daniel was her father, and that grandparents were supporting players, not directors. The security camera is still in my living room. I've never taken it down. Some people think it's paranoid. I think it's insurance. Because I learned something important through all of this. Documentation is power. Truth is power. And sometimes the only way to protect yourself from people who would gaslight you, manipulate you, and try to steal your reality is to have cold, hard evidence of what actually happened. That camera saved my life. It saved my daughter. And I will never, ever be ashamed that I installed it.
So that's my story. That's how I went from being a terrified new mother who thought she was losing her mind to a woman who fought back and won. If you're watching this and you're experiencing something similar, if someone in your life is making you doubt your reality, making you question your sanity, making you feel like you're failing when you're actually doing your best, please hear me. You're not crazy. Gaslighting is real. Family manipulation is real, and you deserve to be believed. Document everything. Keep records, take screenshots, install security cameras if you need to. Protect yourself because no one else will do it for you. And if you're a new parent struggling with exhaustion, with anxiety, with the overwhelming responsibility of keeping a tiny human alive, you're not alone. What you're feeling is normal. The fact that you're worried about being a good parent means you probably are one. Don't let anyone use your normal struggles as weapons against you. I want to give a shout out to my lawyer, Rachel, who fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself, to my father-in-law, William, who chose the truth over family loyalty, to Judge Morrison, who saw through the manipulation and protected my daughter, and to every person who's ever had to stand up to someone they loved because the alternative was losing themselves. To Daniel, I know you'll probably watch this eventually. I want you to know that I forgive you. It took time and it wasn't easy, but I do. You were conditioned from childhood to prioritize your mother's needs over everything else, and breaking that programming was the hardest thing you've ever done. I'm proud of you for doing it. I'm proud of the father you've become, and I'm grateful every day that you finally chose us. To Victoria, I hope you're continuing your therapy. I hope you're learning to find fulfillment without needing to control everyone around you. I hope that someday my daughters will know you as the grandmother who learned from her mistakes, not the one who tried to tear their mother apart. And to everyone watching, if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Drop a comment below telling me your thoughts, your own experiences, or just letting me know that you were here. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Let's build a community where people don't have to fight these battles alone. What happened to me could happen to anyone. Family manipulation doesn't discriminate. It happens in rich families and poor families, in educated families and struggling families. It happens when people believe that good intentions justify controlling behavior, when people think that love means ownership, when people can't accept that they aren't the center of everyone's universe. But here's the thing. You have more power than you think. You have the power to say no. You have the power to set boundaries. You have the power to protect yourself and your children from people who would harm you, even if those people are family. You are enough. You are strong. You are capable, and you deserve to be respected. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being part of this community. And remember, the truth backed by evidence is the most powerful weapon you have. Take care of yourselves, take care of your families, and never, ever let anyone make you doubt your reality. I'm Maya Santos, and this is my story. Until next time.